Welcome to Deep Work Out Loud, the thinking that fuels our life, our work, and our leadership. I'm Julie Harris Oliver. This is the podcast where I sit with another professional coach and we do some work around a single concept or a piece of inspiration, a topic we've seen come up in our coaching or in our life. And if we're very lucky while we're talking about it, we might demonstrate what coaching might look and feel like. But we'll see how this goes. It's all an experiment. With any luck, you'll leave with something that you can apply in your leadership, in your life, or both. Today, I'm here with Rishikesh Tirumalai. Rishi is a strategic partner, experienced designer, and leadership coach working with technology leaders and arts organizations. After a decade wading through the waters of the startup world, Rishi now focuses on creating immersive performance art, teaching courses on emergence, and finding right relationship with our lands and the people living on it. Rishi particularly enjoys engaging with mystery and inviting others to do the same. To this day, this practice has led him toward recovery from alcoholism, repair with ancestry and parents, multiple career changes, and a series of creative pursuits that any well-meaning adult role model might call elite. And that's what brings Rishi joy in life. Welcome, Rishi. Before we dig in, what was your journey to becoming a coach?
Just kind of laughing because I think that's the first time I've heard someone else read that thing back to me that I've written. It's in a few different places.
It's always a little weird hearing someone read your bio.
I think it's delightful. I'm like, oh, I like this guy. Oh, this person's cool.
I love your sense of humor. Comes right through.
The journey, winding journey, really full of so much like left turn after left turn after left turn. I think one significant moment is just a moment of discernment that I made. I was 23. I had been invited to take a solo trip. Actually, I would never have done this on my own, but someone actually paid for a flight for me to go to Panama for 10 days. And I just had such an opening experience, just seeing the world with a completely different lens. And Panama is like basically a US colony. It's not actually so far away from what I knew. And I've been to India. I lived in India as a child, many years of those two contexts, the US and India. But something about just breaking out of the bubble I was in the tech world here, I was like, oh, wow, I know nothing. I know very little. And I'm in an environment of people who really sees from one vantage. And I wanted to see from multiple vantages. At the time, in my 20s, I was just hungry to see from kind of every vantage.
What was it about Panama?
Explore. It wasn't Panama specifically. I think it was I was in the solo travel world, and it's changed a lot in the last 15 years. The specific way that people were living was very modest and very connected to the earth and following patterns of, and surfers are like this. I'm not a surfer, but hung out with a lot of surfers in a lot of places where surfers hang out because of the general vibe is like people are moving in accordance with the messages they receive from the land, like seasonal patterns and living cyclically. And there's something in our bodies that just resonates with that I couldn't put my finger on at the time. But I came back to the Bay Area and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do like a 40-year tech career as a software engineer, becoming an engineering manager, VP, founder, whatever. I just knew that there was something for me that was more into connection and intimacy. So I spent some time, I did another year at my first job, which was incredible. I received so much mentorship and support there. And then I went traveling for a couple of years and discovered this calling as a teacher. And I spent the following 2 years teaching in a coding bootcamp. And that was also totally expensive, opening. And then a friend introduced me to the concept of coaching. And I felt like this is everything I like about teaching. I need the crap. Like really genuinely meeting people where they are, learning deeply about someone, creating space for that person to learn about themselves, aha moments, experiences of like really raw realness, and then doing something about it and going somewhere with that. And that just was really alluring. I hired a coach, want to know if this is real, and was resistant to a lot of it at first. Like, oh, I don't need help. Like, I'm great. Like all this attitude. And then I had a big crisis and I needed to get sober. So I had a big crisis with my drinking and alcoholism. It's like, oh shit, I need to look at myself differently. And the coach I worked with at that time really just, changed my whole trajectory. And then I decided to go for it and get trained out and start coaching people. It's been, that's just been nonstop since then. It's really growing from my capacity, learning how to meet people more radically, learning who I am, and discovering all the different ways that we can be with each other, that we can be with the land, and we can be with the world beyond humankind. I think that's my story, really.
Now it sounds like, unless I missed a bunch of years in between, it sounded like you came to coaching fairly young. Is that true?
Probably I'm kind of an outlier in a lot of my coaching world. I'm like, first of all, being a person of color, being a man, being a young person, are all outliers in the coaching world. I was in a certification cohort when I was getting certified that was 7 white women in their 50s and up and me.
Yeah, that's the typical profile.
It was fun. There's something about a lot of my peers and people in my world don't even fully get coaching. They don't like they understand theoretically what it is, but in terms of realizing what it can do for someone, what it can do for your life. I'm not trying to be everyone's coach, but I'm like, I have a network and a lot of my friends, some of them are starting to take me up on it. I'm realizing that just my cohort of people, we're not well represented and we also don't get it. I come from a culture where asking for help is actually really difficult and receiving help. Even if you're successful and well off, a lot of that is through this, what I call immigrant individualism, like the kind of individualism that's forced through the process of immigration. Like I saw it happen to my dad. He had to take on a lot on himself, whereas the culture he came from was a lot more, we support each other. My parents come from a community of immigrants in New Jersey. Like they came up in this community after immigrating that was very supportive and like very there for each other. And the concept of like, hiring somebody to help you out, I'm going to find a coach, I'm going to find a therapist is totally anathema for my folks and a lot of the folks in our community. So I'm really curious. I'm really curious what 20 years from now, what it'll feel like. And I'm also grateful. I like being on the edge. I really like being one of the few Indian men in the coaching world. And then every time I meet someone, it's like, oh, you too. It's actually really fun, healing together.
It sounds like that combination of that immigrant kind of grind with the American individualism, where we just make things as hard as they could possibly be for everybody. Why do you think you were able to shift from that?
I don't have a clear answer as to why. Since like being a kid, I've always been someone who questions like, what's normal? What's the deal of this? Oh, we're all acting this way, but I don't get it. And I would be someone to try to disrupt that. And I do think that coming up in tech, the word disruption was used a lot in the early days. Now they don't anymore, which is pretty funny. But yeah, the idea of we're going to break certain patterns of like how the system works. And I used to think of startups as insurgent forces, like just creating entirely new pathways of economic growth and how people related to each other. And some of that's true. But there was also a way that a lot of startups were caught in this here's the game. And the game is defined under terms of venture capitalism. And here's the story of what it means to be successful. And we're all going to win at this game. And I was like, what about just playing a different game, like rewriting the game, or just like choosing not to play? And that's what I thought of as disruption.
Mhm.
And my parents were some of the earliest people in our larger community of South Indian immigrants to get a divorce. Incredible disruption. So courageous on everyone's part in my family and of their friends who like took them in and accepted the different flows and shifts that brought out. It was something I feel like it's something in my family too, not just me,
Mhm.
breaking the rules a little bit to be more authentic or to be more real.
I love the string of disruption. Okay, we're going to talk about what just happened in case I can edit this together somehow. But we had just started to talk about disruption when our entire session got disrupted and just got disconnected. That was wild.
Beautiful.
So that was meta. But I did want to pull on this string of disruption a bit more. And also in your bio, talking about like emergent art. And it feels like there's a connection there. What can you talk about that?
Well, there's something interesting. I think the word disruption indicates like breaking the order. But I actually think a lot of what I want to do with my work, and what I'm doing with this emergent art stuff is um, aligning with nature and aligning with the natural order and listening for what actually wants to happen here. A very simple example is like in the winter, we're tired more because there's less sunlight and just it's like a cyclical inside of the cycle is the time to be slower and to be quieter and to listen and to be in the dark and maybe sleep more. And that's just a natural cycle. And we also live in a sort of culture where on January 1st, we all make our plans and it's time to go. And here's the next who I'm going to be in the future. And I'm going to make a plan for the whole year from winter to winter. And really doesn't, I learned very recently that this was in like 400 BC. So like, no, maybe like 40 BC. Actually, I don't remember the exact date, but that far back, the new year was in March and it shifted to January
Mm.
so it could align with the time that the consuls were paid because their term started in January and they just wanted to start the year early. So they shifted the whole new year forever. And I'm like, this is so interesting because that's an artificial construct that we all agree to. And so for me, disruption isn't actually about breaking all the construct because some of the constructs are in harmony with nature. It's more about asking what is harmony and what is harmonious. In particular, for me, like what's harmonious in my body. How is my body responding to this? Because I have a mentor, and she says this beautiful thing, which is your life is where your body is. So if you're asleep, your life's in the dream world, and if you're at a party, your life's at that party, and if you're at work, or if you're in the woods by yourself, or if you're hanging out with your family and eating cake and having tea or whatever, that's your whole life, that one moment. And what if we just learn to listen to that? And yeah, the thing about that's so radical is that it does disrupt a lot of expectations about how we're supposed to be. You're supposed to marry somebody, and even if in the truth of your relationship you're not meant to be together, you're supposed to stay together. That's the culture my parents came
Hmm.
from. So for them to disrupt that by getting divorced, so what they were doing was actually quite harmonious with nature.
It's so interesting that the disruption becomes actually being where you are and doing the thing that you should be doing.
Yeah. It's only disruptive in a context that tells us that we're supposed to be somewhere that's not right for us. So,
Right.
and I see it all the time. I've met so many people in my career, worked with people, but also peers and friends who are doing things that are not in accordance with who they actually are. And it's just heartbreaking to me to see that because I also think that that's what confirms I draw a connection between that and how we relate to our larger political sphere. And actually making choices of authenticity is a form of activism
Mhm.
and it requires like such a deep courage and it has been in my own career has been actually quite isolating and alienating at times to go against the grain.
It makes everybody question what they're doing. There's a lot of
Right.
perspective. I think so much of our work, just from people I talk to, I don't know if this is so much your work, but I suspect it is the way you're talking about it, is people figuring out I'm so far out of alignment and I don't know how to get back. And now that a lot of
Yeah.
times now that I'm in midlife and I've less of that survival fear, how can I get back to alignment and where I was really meant to be?
Yeah. Yeah. I think what's fun is like working with leaders who are wanting to come into greater alignment, they actually have so much impact on their whole entire world. You're a leader at a 100-person company. That's a small company at the end of the day, but that's 100 people who are directly impacted by your relationship with your authenticity.
And as John Amici says,
And
all those people's kids know your name. They talk about you at dinner.
exactly. It's so fun, actually. It can be so fun to watch a leader come into like really deep integrity with themselves and start to have fun. Like, I think my favorite thing is talking with somebody who's, I'm not really having fun because this or that reason, right? I'm stressed or the conditions feel weird, or maybe I'm holding my relationship with my role as obligation and I'm not having fun as a leader myself. Like, I'm not seeing that being a leader can be fun. And then slowly seeing that shift usually it takes 3 to 6 months, maybe more sometimes, but it takes some time. But just getting to track like the shift into like, I am me and we're doing this my way and I get to do it my way. And that being better for everybody
Mhm.
and I think I've seen this is not related to leadership or whatever. This is just humankind and culture and society. But I see so many people living with, I don't get to be me as like a dominating story.
Yeah. How do you help people shift from this can be fun, from the crushing responsibility?
Yeah. Different people respond to different things. I think one thing I've noticed, especially early on in a coaching relationship, when coaching, I learned in my training and just in practice, like it's probably better not to give advice. Probably better not to say, I know what you should do. But there is sometimes a value in holding a vision for somebody and saying, I really believe, like I'm holding for you that you can be in exactly the role you're in and have a lot more fun.
Mhm.
Like I believe that, and to hold that conviction, and like I've seen it over and over again, and you can too. And that sometimes people this is true for me with getting sober. Like, I couldn't see that it was possible for me to love my life more without drinking, that I could love myself more, that I could, to be very candid, that I could feel the kind of like full aliveness, both in my like expression as a creative, in my expression as like a sexual being, in my expression as a, even as a friend and showing care and compassion and friendliness, that I could trust my own, like what was moving through me and the energy of Rishi, that I could trust who that was if I wasn't drinking. And for somebody to come along and say, yeah, you will get sober. Like you will, and you will like your life better.
It's the gift of
Mm.
holding the possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I love, like I lived in possibility a lot. I was 5, no, I was 10 years old when I first started to hold the possibility of my parents' divorce, which happened 20 years later. I was 15 when I first brought it up to my mom.
The kids always know.
Yeah, they really know. The kids are way less programmed. You should be looking to them a lot more to see what's really
Yeah,
going
and you
on.
should not be staying together for the kids thinking that they're not gonna notice and think everything's happy. They never do.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough to be talking about my parents' divorce too, because I just did lose my dad,
I'm
as
sorry.
you know,
Yeah.
like in November, and still feeling like holding, both of us holding a lot of potential for each other. That some of it will not be realized, like in this plane of existence, because he's gone.
And how does that change things for you?
I think there's a big adulting threshold that I'm crossing right now, like a big sort of don't squander the time you have here,
Mm.
and also take yourself seriously. Take what you do very seriously. My dad was an entrepreneur. Both my parents are actually. It's another way that they were mavericks, especially for their generation of immigrants. And I think what my dad really wanted for us was to be world builders. I have a younger brother. He wanted for both of us to be world builders. And I remember being young and hearing, probably in my like first 15 years of my life, and he'd come home from work and he had lost a job. At one point, he lost his job, and I asked him about it, or maybe my mom had asked him about it, and he was like, "Rishi, they were wanting me to behave in ways and do things that I didn't agree with, and they wanted to like move money around in a way that I didn't agree with, and I lost my job, and they let me go." And he wasn't upset about it. He held his head up high that I had a choice. I chose my own values.
Yeah.
There are ways, my dad and I have a complicated, very complicated history together, a lot of difficulties. And it was interesting to hear people reach out to me to be like, I know you were having a tough time with him. And because in the last year, it didn't have as much. We had moved through some stuff and found some repair at the end. But what I'm remembering is also that so many of my values and the way that I am was inspired directly by him, both of them, both my parents. And I guess what that gives me is just the conviction that like I'm resourced to go forth and create something. There's one more thing I want to say. The other thing that's changing is actually just because grief is so immense, I'm also not holding that like I have to do it right now. I'm like the only thing I have to do is be present to myself. And again, like be with my body and ask like the grief itself has a lesson for me. And it's not my first walk with grief. And that's given me the chance to like really understand that there is so much value in being really slow and being really patient to see what's the message and to let it flower on its own time.
I think that's a particularly brave thing to do in this culture. Not to numb out, not to distract yourself, but to allow yourself to sit in it.
I'm just letting myself sit in it right now. It's raining like crazy outside, like downpours. It has been for the last week.
Is there anything that now you feel is more possible than it was before?
Before my dad passed, one experience I was having in the early days of him passing was like a level of stability that was available to me was just
Mm.
gone. Like I could just lean on him. I don't want to say never, I rarely took him up on it, but he was just there as a pillar for me. And in so many like my brother and I were talking about even being in and out of contact over the many years, neither of us stopped using him as our security contact because he would just show up. And with time, and as I like connect with him, I try to like communicate with him, not through, because I don't have words or like language as much as I used to when he was alive, but still trying to communicate with him or calling in his energy or being in that relationship that I have with him. One thing I notice is that stability is starting to return, and I feel it more inside of me rather than from him. Like I feel it more inside my own system. And so maybe I do feel that sometimes this is going to feel different based on your belief system or whatever, but I feel like the universe takes away something one way. One of the one of the impacts of that is that it helps each of us see who we can be without that thing,
Hmm. What is it
that we
making
can
room
go
for?
on. Yeah. And also that I am a source of stability. Actually, I'm a kind of a pillar. Just recently, just this morning, actually, a housemate was referring to me as a pillar, and not just for her, but for a community of people. And realizing that, like, I provide that kind of stability that my dad provided for me and my brother. I actually do already provide that.
Hmm.
And I don't think I saw it that way before.
Is that, do you think, the adulting piece?
Related. Feels really related. Yeah.
And it was there before, but now it's revealed.
I think it's also a call to like take on more adulting. Yeah. I don't have kids, but yeah, I spend a lot of time with young kids and been thinking about it a lot. And I'm also in the place right now where I'm like, it's too soon to make any big decisions
Yeah.
or do anything really. But I really see myself like over the next 5 years, like continuing to grow up and in a way that feels super fun. And I'm so excited to go through all these different thresholds and keep becoming. And I think I also feel that my dad is like blessing the journey. Yeah.
When you talk about it being fun and you looking forward to it, what are you picturing?
One thing is actually just being able to hire someone, like working with somebody who we have a shared goal and I can actually support them to like work on that goal with me,
What do you mean?
especially working with a fellow artist who wants to get into some of the art education stuff that I've been doing. Like I'm actually thinking about growing that work.
Mm.
So far, it's been me running courses on my own in a very grassroots way. And I can see in the next 2 years, maybe establishing a team and creating stuff together as a team.
I'm smiling because I did a little meditation before we started talking, and the word that kept coming in was expansion.
Yeah. And then another obvious one that feels more out of reach or maybe more mysterious is just expanding like a family, growing that. Yeah. And I think if it happens, it will be totally baffling to me because it's not something that I'm planning for. It's not something I'm actively asking for, but it's like, if it happens, I'll say yes if it comes my way.
It's like you're not
Yeah.
actively seeking it out, but it's like you suspect it's coming. It's coming at you.
Something is coming. I have a people do word of the year or
Hmm.
intentions, and I think a year is too big of a time scale to really have. But I have this intention for the coming season, and maybe it'll move out into the world and into the year. The intention is to be like in a non-striving or non-forcing stance, and really just trusting the right place, right time of things, and trusting that what's in front of me is what I'm meant to be with
Hmm.
and face, confront, enjoy, savor. And it's a little bit of a slower existence than I have had recently. But it's also like, I actually find that a lot happens. A lot of shit just happens naturally when I don't strive too much and I'm just watching it happen. And maybe that there are moments, and I think this is where like learning to be in my body has been really helpful. There are moments when I get the message like, you need to take action. This is the time for you to step forward and act. So it's not acting or inaction.
It's
It's
not
just
passive.
not striving. Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
another interview with Laura Rebel Gross, and at the end of it, we came to more purpose, less hustle.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, hustle is really sexy, and it's really that whole attitude of hustling, it seems like really it's in our culture, it's really ingrained in our culture, and it's associated with need, and I think it's yeah, like you said, it's incredibly courageous, just getting our needs met without doing that,
Hmm.
to actually see how much care and resources available to us if we don't fight for it, and then we're not fighting.
And it feels vital to me right now. I really want to ask you how you put this in context with the world right now. We're recording on January 5th.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard not to tie this into the larger climate of we're in the United States and like the climate of like how the US government relates to the world and taking action in the world. And there is a lot of we need this,
Hmm.
we need that, and we need to take action. We need to make things ours. We need to create in our image. it's a different relationship with the word expansion, actually.
Not in a good way.
And yeah, it's like it's and just I yeah, to very soberly I wanna be very sober and directly look at the truth that I live in a colonizing power, and I have for my entire life. And that also being like a child of a colonized people,
Hmm.
having grown up between the US and India, and my parents being from India, that's a very complex straddle to have. And it is difficult because I benefit from being in the US. I benefit from the
Sure.
global system, the global order. And I also have been hurt and traumatized and carry generational trauma from that the same exact movements. And I think that there is another world, another sort of version of me, different time that was like, it's my job to right the wrongs of, and I'm like, I don't know that I can right anything. I think the best I can do is bear witness and be very honest with myself about what's happening. And then to say, can I like practice growing trust with myself that if there is an action for me to take, then it's in service of healing and repair and reparation rather than towards like perpetuating the harms of the global overculture, which here's a great book I'm reading. It's called Outgrowing Modernity.
Mm.
It's related to another book. It's a sort of a sequel to another book called Hospicing Modernity. They're both trying to look with very clear, wide eyes at what is the world and what is for any of us in any positionality in the world. How do we, how are we hurt by the way the world is? How do we benefit from the way the world is? And how do we contribute to it implicitly or knowingly? And can we, yeah, can we grow out of that?
That's the thing that grow out of it. Because I think another one of the things that's happening right now is it's being so blatantly revealed that the narrative is not matching, has never matched what actually
Yeah.
goes on. And then trying to reconcile that as a people feels,
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of instinct from people to disconnect or ignore it or go crazy in the other direction.
Yeah. I think there's something that really either trying to avoid the feelings or trying to mitigate the feelings through taking excessive
Mhm.
action or expressing rage, which rage is on I honor a lot of sacred rage, but there is something about just sitting with and staying with the grief and the longing for a different kind of world and the pain of like, if I really let myself and I slow down enough, I think this is why it's so difficult to stay slow because if I slow down enough, I can feel in my own body all of the pain in the world, all of the pain of ecocide, deforestation, fracking, mass murder of children, global hunger crisis, like separation of families. Like the list goes on and
All of
on.
it.
And if I just slow down, I can actually feel just how much pain is there. And I wouldn't want anything different because this is what connects me to the larger fabric. And it's also what helps me align, like the true alignment of what am I supposed to do with this one precious life?
Hmm.
And how am I supposed to show up? I don't want to show up in a way that's blind to any of this pain, or any of the other feelings. Also, the immense joy and the immense gratitude and the like, it's a deep forgiveness that continues to be pouring out from Mother Earth. Oh, it's almost like she has infinite forgiveness for us for all of the shit that's happening. And I want to be part of it. I want to be part of it all.
So where do we go from here?
I'm just enjoying being here with you in the rain and the pain and the hope and the conviction.
I keep coming back to that word disruption and the disruption to the system that we're in. That really is just mad right now, mad crazy and mad angry. And it feels like cultivating presence and calm and all the things you're talking about is the disruption.
Yeah. I feel sad to say that. I feel sad to see that like disruption because of how much the forces of everyday, I think it's too simplistic to call it capitalism, but just what we have grown to believe we need to do to survive requires so much. And I do a lot to survive. It's a lot I do on a daily basis. I do shit that I don't want to do, but I think that it's just measured with, is this within the world that wants to be created? I don't envy people who do have kids and do have to put food on the table. I don't envy people who are responsible for employees and paying, like genuinely having to support people and feeling that responsibility. I think that's why I'm drawn to the work I do, is because that level of responsibility creates a narrative that you have to do this in order to sustain. your obligations. And I'm like, that's what I want to disrupt. I'm like, there's something about that doesn't sit with me
Mhm.
because actually, if we were to actually look at our obligations, we're not meeting many of them. Like in our current system, we're actually not meeting most of
Mm.
them. Like, what's our obligation to the people of the world that some of whom we will never meet? And what's our obligation to the earth? What's our obligation to our descendants, like generation one, two, three down the line? Are we looking at those things as much as we're looking at this is what I think I have to do to make it today? The active effort of slowing down to, I've said slowing down so much in this interview, the active effort of slowing down to actually consider and discern the broader scope of things. I think that, yeah, I would call that disruption because it breaks the sort of urgency culture that we're in
Mhm.
or the sort of scarcity of time. I can only look one day at a time. And it's so prevalent in startups. It's like it's like one of the favorite ways of being in startups is we can't look past what's going on right now. And some of that's true. And some of that's also if we don't take the time to see the bigger picture, then we're heading off a cliff and we don't know it.
With the attitude of we have no choice but to go off the cliff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love choice. I feel like choice is so important to me. Sometimes the most beautiful, powerful choices have been the hardest ones, like the choice to get sober, or the choice my parents made to get divorced. Like they were exercising choice every moment. And it's so much effort to just approach and find and arrive at that moment of this is it, like knocking on the door of the unknown.
Oh, it takes
This is
incredible
it.
courage.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a lot of admiration for people like, and I have a mentor who put this idea in my head, and it's been true. It's just like feeling so much reverence for and learning from every client because every single client is doing something just incredibly brave. And but just the idea of deciding to work with a coach requires so much like self inquiry and going deeper. And yeah, I remember when I couldn't do it. I just remember when it just was so out of balance for me. And I have deep admiration for people doing that.
Yeah, I remember a day at my therapist I was like, I thought I was done with all this self-improvement and growth. I'm exhausted. Can we just stop for a minute?
I have a day. I have a day like that every 3 months.
Enough
I
already.
remember I've referenced being in the body and listening to the body so much in this call, and I'm also like, I remember the very first time, like my first ever coach was like, "What are you noticing in your body?" And I was like, "What the hell are you talking about? What do you mean my body? What are you saying?" And just that person is now, yeah, like crying about the world and enjoying the rain, and I'm like, anything is possible. Just genuinely, anything is possible.
And did you prefer the juicy feeling in your body?
Yeah, it's so tasty. I think what I love also is the feeling of complete unity with the world. Not I don't always get to have that, but I think that growing up in a culture that told me that I was separate and I had to figure it out for myself, it's so lonely. And I still feel lonely sometimes, but I don't feel separate from the world. I think I just feel like loneliness is part of being in the world.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If we could just shift just that one thing of you have to do it alone. So one of the hardest things is getting to a place where you can receive and ask.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
What does support look like for you right now in this season?
I've been really enjoying people who can hang out with me and just hang out. I've gotten good at asking for it too, because I've been in grief with my dad.
Mhm.
People have approached me with that, oh, I want to talk to you about your dad. And I want to hear, and almost sometimes like a feeling of, I need to support you.
Yeah.
I need you to tell me, like, or like, I want to focus the conversation on you. And I notice sometimes that actually makes me feel more alienated.
Mm.
I started telling people when it was happening, hey, I actually noticed that and this was pretty brave for me at the time, a few weeks ago when I first did it. Just actually, I don't want to take all the questions because what I want to do is hang out and actually maybe hear more of your story or just connect. And the friends of mine who have been able to show up, just able to kick it and give me an experience of normalcy, like naturally,
Mhm.
the stuff with my dad just comes into the conversation because it's kind of everywhere for me. So if we're hanging out, you're going to hear about it. Like it happened with you just now. Like it just came up because I couldn't not talk
Yeah.
about it. And it's fun when there's no pressure that like we're here to support Rishi or we're here to create an experience for him, which sometimes that can be really, like, if we're both like coaching is an experience of an agreement to like create an experience for one person.
Mhm.
Right. So like I love that stuff, but I have loved like just vibing with people without an agenda and the kind of stuff that's been coming out just because of who's there and who we are and where we are right now is really profound. I lived, especially in my early coaching career, some of my a close friend of mine listening to this, you might remember a time when like all I wanted to do was like facilitate stuff and let's do the intentional hangout and birthday parties would have all kinds of like a planned agenda. And it's, yes, one of the things that's changing the last couple of months is I'm really enjoying just kicking it without any of the sort of expectation of intensity or intimacy. Without the intimacy of being together is enough. That's just great.
You don't have to plan to have a deep time.
It's part of my non-striving attitude right now, which I'm honestly really loving.
Just be cool.
It is kind of characteristic of me for people who know me that I have to label the thing as non-striving to just hang out and be normal. But I'm not normal. I'm like pretty divergent, so it's fine.
We're going to do nothing right now and just be cool.
Okay, let's do nothing for a little bit.
Again, disruption. All right. If there was something you would leave us with today about where you are, what you're learning, where you are in this season, what would it be?
I mean, the ultimate, like the most beautiful, sacred work is to take care of each other, to have fun with each other. And I think I really want to hold that as a North Star for my life is have fun and help the people around me have fun.
I'm writing that down. Rishi, thank you for doing this.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Julie. Thanks for the invitation. And you don't know me, so it's pretty cool. Get to know you like this.
I feel like I know you now.
Yeah, same.
This has been Deep Work Out Loud. I'm Julie Harris Oliver. I'd like to thank Rishikesh Tirumalai for joining the podcast. And if any of this resonates with you, please subscribe, leave a review at all the podcast places. And if you'd like to work with me, you can find me at julieharrisoliver.com. If you'd like to work with Rishi, you can find him at emergencewizard.com. And let me leave you with this information. What might it look like if you were to try to have a little bit more fun? What would that look like at work? What would that look like if you're a leader? Just to bring some more fun into your leadership. Try some things, report back. Thanks for listening. See you next time.